We'll get started. Welcome to our inaugural season registration coaches orientation session. So we wanted to invite you all here to share a little bit about a new platform that we are offering at Special Olympics. Some of you have already been exposed to it. Some of you have already gotten involved and been through season registration, and this is going to be new to a lot of you. So it's definitely a new experience that we are providing to you as coaches and our athletes and partners to better serve our Special Olympics community. So we're going to share a little bit more about what our season registration platform looks like, but we are excited to present this opportunity to you guys. So we're going to kick it off by Elizabeth, if you don't mind sharing your screen now. We'll start off by giving you an overview of what we're going to be chatting about today. So Elizabeth wants to share the next slide. So we're going to cover a few things on this call. We're going to start off with a general introduction of season registration, what we're trying to do, what we're looking to accomplish, how it affects you guys as coaching. We're going to share a little bit about our timeline and our communication strategy of what we're trying to accomplish. There's been a little bit of confusion points between some of these new terminologies between our athlete application, registration, etc. So clarify a little bit on those different types of terms that we are now utilizing more frequently. We're going to cover our coach registration, give you guys an opportunity to ask questions, provide you with some answers. And we're going to go more in depth into our athlete registration, what that looks like for the athletes that are going through it, and then give you another opportunity to answer some questions. We're going to dive into what our team rosters will look like for everybody, and then recap with just some final questions for all. So with that, I'm going to kick it over to our CEO, Megan Scremin, who you guys all know very well, who's going to give you an introduction into seasonal registration.
Thanks, Adrian. And hi, everybody. It's so nice to see you all. Thanks for joining us on this snowy night. So as Adrian said, we just wanted to, I'll just start by giving, I guess, a little bit of context as to how we came to where we are today, which is talking about the seasonal registration process. And I really just want to cover a few high-level topics or points. And the first of which is that this seasonal registration process was really created in response to feedback we received from coaches and athletes, with our end goals of making it easier for you as coaches, easier for family members, easier for people who are brand new to Special Olympics to get involved with Special Olympics, and people or athletes who are already involved to try a new sport. So we heard a lot of feedback that we're trying to address here, including ease of registering, timeline. We wanted to have consistency. So when are we opening up registration, as opposed to just going to the coach a few weeks before season begins? We wanted to give people internally and externally, or people who are currently part of our organization and not, more time. So we wanted a consistent timeline. We wanted a longer timeline so that was an extended time frame. We heard people wanted rosters, and we want rosters ourselves so that it becomes much easier year over year to help you as coaches say, this was your roster last year, knowing that we have it as accurate of information as possible. We heard you wanted contact information, and we want contact information for athletes and family members as well, so that we can, again, do a better job helping you as coaches, give you that information, the contact information, the parent information that you need. So that's really why this was created. And it was, I will say, along the way, it's created in response to feedback that we'd heard. And then along the way, before we launched it, we talked a lot about it internally. We asked a lot of coaches and family members for feedback before launching it. As in between the winter and spring season, we made a lot of modifications to the process simply based on feedback we'd received. And again, this is just another one of our checkpoints. We are very, very clear in our understanding that this is not a good, sorry, this is not a final process. So we will continue to listen to your feedback as we go. And that really is the point of this call. This is the point of this call tonight. This is Maddie, hello. So that's really the point of this call tonight, is so that we can provide better education, more communication, and then really get your feedback so that we can continue to make those changes. So please know that we know this is not a final process, and we really want to get that feedback. Also, this whole process is created to make it to support you as coaches. We want to provide information to you sooner. We want to provide rosters, and it benefits the athletes and partners, again, by making it easier. That really is the thing here. We're trying to remove any barriers to participating. So we want to make it easier for new and current athletes to try a new sport that maybe they haven't tried before and wanted to try. So Adrian, do you want to run to the next slide? So again, as we said, we piloted this seasonal registration process in the winter. And really one of our main goals was ease of participating. But if you remember, we have our strategic plan, and two of our strategic goals are making our process easier and to increase the number of people we serve. And we really know that listening to you and to athletes, we want more athletes, we want more teams, because that makes a better experience. So just looking at our winter season as a pilot program, we had 205 total winter team seasons in the season we're in right now. 41 new teams, brand new teams. So to put that in a little bit of context, some sports that had lower participation, like figure skating and speed skating, snowshoe, where there might have been teams that were competing against themselves for many years, we've been able to really infuse new teams and new participation, which, as everyone knows, makes the experience more fun for everybody. 124 new athletes participating and 49 new coaches recruited. So this is, again, this was in our pilot season, so we only expect things to hopefully get better for you as coaches and to continue to grow. But we're really excited about this process, or the results seen. And hopefully, as we go through this, we'll see, kind of get a bigger picture of the process, but really know that we're here to work with you and make it as easy as possible. So any questions for me before I toss it back to Adrian? Sorry for the interruption too. Okay.
Excellent multitasking. Well, we're gonna move on, and I didn't introduce myself. I realize that now, so I'm gonna start off with those who don't know me. I am Adrian Warren. I'm the Senior Director of Regional Services here at Special Olympics Colorado. So I oversee our regional manager team, and then also oversee the day-to-day efforts in the Denver region as well. And then joined on the call, obviously, by Meg, who you just heard from, and our Northeast and Western regional managers, Elizabeth Haslin and Michelle Peters, who you'll be hearing from as well later on in this call. So we're going to move on now onto our next slide and share a little bit more about our seasonal timeline and what we're talking about now. So those of you who are spring season coaches, you've already gone through your coach registration and are aware that athlete registration is now open for all athletes and unified partners to join and register for their teams of choice and sports of choice. So here's our spring season timeline. We opened up coach registration on December 1st and had it open through January 4th, where we gave you guys as coaches the opportunity to register your teams. And then we were asking information to better support you guys. So how can we support you with more assistant coaches, more administrative support? Do you need additional unified partners? Do you need additional athletes? Trying to get a better gauge of also where you're practicing and get your general season information so that we know what to share with our athlete base once it went live. So for those of you that were on the had registered as part of the winter season, an adjustment that we made based off of your feedback was inputting coaches coach practice information on the front end for athletes to be able to select from, which wasn't available in the winter season. And it's really streamlined the process for athletes to be able to find the opportunities that they're searching for. So then we moved on into our registration for athletes and partners, which opened up on January 10th and closes on March 1st. So it's presently open for all athletes and partners to join. For those of you coaches who have not already shared it with your teams, we're really encouraging everybody to go through this process. We're wanting, even if they're already communicating and connecting with you directly on their engagement for the season, we really want as many people to register as possible so that we can capture their information and give you the tools you need to be prepared for the season. So we'll share out additional reminders. You'll hear that from your regional managers, but encouraging you to have your athletes register through this process now until March 1st. On February 15th, we're going to start doing initial placement communication with both powerlifting and gymnastics coaches. Those seasons and regional competitions will be a little bit earlier on in the season than the three other sports. So giving those coaches an earlier opportunity to review their rosters and start communicating with the athletes so we can get them ready for practice earlier on in the season and be prepared for regional competitions. On February 26th, we're going to be doing a MedFest in Parker, Colorado. So this is a really exciting opportunity that we're going to try to continue to expand across the state in all of our other regions. But this is a really easy chance for our athletes who have either expiring applications or are seeking to renew or need an athlete application for the first time to come in person and have an in-person medical screening by one of our clinical directors that they're going to be able to offer that firsthand for our athletes. So we do have several spots available. So if you do know of athletes who are interested or have upcoming expired paperwork, direct them to this MedFest opportunity. We're looking to continue to offer those more frequently and around the state as well, to be able to give those opportunities for more athletes to get that access. Then on March 21st, that's the last date for team placement and announcements to families. So this is when us as regional managers and regional services teams are going to be connecting with you all as coaches directly to give you an opportunity to review your rosters and see if there's any glaring oversights. Are there any athletes who didn't register that should be registered? Are there any athletes on your roster who shouldn't be on your roster, maybe because conflicts with other athletes, or they are not within the vicinity of where you guys are practicing and probably wouldn't work well for them. So that's a time frame that we will be able to start making those last minute adjustments before we then hand off your finalized roster that you can then utilize to communicate with your teams and get ready for the upcoming season. And the spring season will run April 4th to June 15th. We'll kick it over to the next slide. So some of the things that I just covered a little bit of this, but Meg touched on it a bit, but of course, this is still a fluid process and one that we're going to continue to adapt and adjust based off of the feedback that we're receiving, off of the trends that we're seeing and the data that we're analyzing. But one of the adjustments that we're looking at initially is we're going to transition back to a 3-month registration window for athletes and partners. We want to be able to provide more access and more time for our athletes to be able to register for their sport of choice. We did condense that quite a bit for our spring season. So we went from 3 months to 2 months. And have gotten feedback that we really do want to extend that a little bit more to give that additional opportunity for athletes. We've heard the feedback that the timeline can be a little difficult to follow. There's a lot of dates to remember for you guys as coaches. in order to be able to provide you guys with a more streamlined process that's a little bit easier to decipher, we're going to always open registration on this upon the end of the prior season's registration. So if it closes on February 28th, March 1st, the next registration will open. So it's a easy to remember cadence window, so that one's over, the next one starts. So it'll be hopefully easier for your athletes to follow as well. We're looking to add additional layers of coach engagement. Just really good feedback that we received from the winter season, that coaches were wanting to hear from us more regularly with updates on their rosters, instead of right up in that final registration window timeline. So we're adding more of those touch points into our internal timeline to connect with you and give you a mid-season update for you to review your roster, give us any initial feedback, let us connect with any athletes who may not already be registered and give you those opportunities to revisit with them as well. And then another opportunity for us to connect with you with a month out prior to the end of registration closings, to check in and give you that second review time to look at your rosters one more time, and then we can cross our T's and dot our I's and get you guys really prepared for the upcoming season. So last bit, we are trying to extend the window of time where we can communicate practices and practice information to families prior to the season and regional competitions starting up. So knowing that, you could see the first adjustment was moving up our timeline for the powerlifting and gymnastics coaches, so that you guys have earlier access to your teams to then be able to get training for the regional competition. So those are just some more large-scale adjustments that we've made to the timeline based off of feedback that we've received from you all as coaches. So we're going to move on.
Adrian,
Yeah.
do you want me to mention?
Yeah, please interject.
Okay. There was a question about athlete registration calling for a lot of information. It's understanding that athletes will need to register for each sport per season. Will they need to repeat this, or can they just update eventually? I'm not sure if you want to take that.
Yeah, that's a great question. So presently, the way we have it structured, we are asking for them to register each time for every sport that they want to join and every team that they want to join. We are looking at ways to adjust that so that we make it a little bit more streamlined and easier for them to accomplish that, so that they can register at once for multiple sports and multiple teams. It's something that we're analyzing. We're not quite there yet, but it is an objective of ours to get to that point.
Hey, Adrian.
Other questions?
Yeah, Adrian, this is Shaka. Second part of that question was around the coaches registering each season too. Will they will have to register each season, but will they have to complete all the same information also?
Another great question. Yes, presently, the way we have it structured going into the summer season. So we are actively looking at tweaks and adjustments. So it may be adjusted prior to summer season rollout for athletes. At this point, coach registration is probably going to look very similar to what it looked like for spring season coaches. But know that it's something that we're constantly evaluating and wanting to improve to make it a little bit easier for all of you to accomplish, knowing that it is a lot that we are asking of you.
I'll just add to that. We're even looking at internal processes. We're working with external companies as well, including having a meeting on Monday with different organizations that could help facilitate this for us. Right now, know how hard Adrian and the RMs are working when all of this information comes in on spreadsheets, which is basically the fancy technology that we have right now. So there's a lot of work that goes in on the back end, and totally understand it's not as easy as any of us would like it to be. So we're looking at ways that we can optimize it using the technology we have available to us, and looking at other companies and organizations that specialize in this type of registration process. Like as we speak, there's just a lot of factors that go into it. So looking at all different angles to make it as easy as possible.
Yeah, great clarification, Meg. Thanks.
Tammy
And
also, sorry,
yeah.
Adrian.
No,
Tammy
go ahead,
also
Michelle.
mentioned that, what about the athletes who are going to stick with the team every single time? It's a great point. Right now, we are having them re-register each time. And I think we're really trying to just keep track of where athletes go, as well as when something expires. So that way, when we put them on your roster with ease, you'll have all of that information right away. And sometimes, that athlete might want to do something different with a different team that season. So it's just a good way to keep track on our end as well.
Mhm. Yep, that's great input. So one of the things that we're really looking to accomplish out of this is that we found that as coaches had rosters of athletes, they were the keepers of all their rosters. And when a coach were to transition off or leave their program, and we had to then hand over the basically keys to the car for the next coach in waiting to pick up where the other coach left off, we didn't have a lot of the communication tools that we needed to get in touch with the athletes that were part of those teams in prior seasons. So by us being able to capture this and be able to collect and assemble all the rosters, we will then be able to provide you as coaches on a season by season update of everybody who's registered for your team. But should anything happen and you as a coach leave, and then we need to fill the void behind you, we will be able to share that same information with your successor, so that they are able to pick up from where you left off.
Hey, Adrian, there was also a two-part question to what Tammy had brought up, the fact that some athletes don't have access to a computer, or there are some areas in Colorado who don't have access to good internet. So I believe what we are asking coaches to do is to add in those athlete names if you know that they're going to be on your roster again that year, and that way we can still track what we need, even if they are unable to access a computer at that time.
That's right. Yeah. And if they require additional support and you need somebody from Special Olympics to get in touch with an athlete to be able to provide them with that support, please feel free to reach out to your regional manager, and then we can contact those athletes and give them the support they need to be able to register themselves.
And Adrian, one last thing, sorry, I just had a direct question, which I think we're covering in a little bit, but, and you may have just covered this as I was typing something else. If an athlete, this is ideal. We want athletes to register with the team, so that, again, we have the most updated contact information so that we can provide you with rosters. The question came up, a lot of teams register, or a lot of athletes already register through a city. If you have that process, if an athlete is connected to you through your process already, that's perfectly fine. We're here to work with athletes and make it easier. So if an athlete does not happen to go either through this process, either to technology barriers, or they already registered through a city program, that's okay. We're just doing the best we can to connect as much information as we have to ultimately create a complete roster with as much updated contact information as we have to help you. But to answer that question, it is a connection to new teams or existing teams. If it doesn't happen, that's okay too. People won't lose their spot on teams and vice versa.
Right. Yeah. This is a new process. It's very new for everybody. So we're obviously going to be very flexible as we continue to pilot this and roll it out statewide. So if your athletes are accustomed to coming to you as coaches first, to then be able to engage with you and sign up for your teams and your rosters, so they're still welcome to do that. And encourage them to let you know if they're wanting to come back. But we are asking that as many as possible to come through this process so that we can capture their information. The more we continue to trend in that way, the better we are going to be able to serve you all as coaches. So with that, I'm going to move on to the next slide. We're going to have plenty of question and answer opportunities throughout this presentation. So we'll be able to keep asking your questions in the chat, and we'll be able to answer away whenever we hit our next break. So summer timeline, wanted to share what we're looking at for summer coaches. So coach registration, it opens, as you'll notice, February 1st. That was yesterday. This is one of the things that we started analyzing over the last week, kind of how we can elongate that timeline window. So with that, we extended the coach registration opportunity earlier. So we pushed it up to February 1st. That said, don't panic. It's going to be open until February 28th. We will share all that information with you all after this call. And then you can get registered for your team over the course of the next 27 or so days. We will, if you are for whatever reason not able to register during that window, just touch base with your regional manager, let them know that you're interested. That's really what we're trying to find at this point, that your team is coming back and you're going to be offering whatever sport this season, so that we know that we can then include it in the athlete registration, so that when athletes are registering, they know that they can select your team and then be registered for that upcoming season. So we will be opening that up basically now, right after this call. Registration for athletes will open March 31st and then be open through March 1st through May 31st. So we're going to offer that 3-month window for athlete and partner registration, give your athletes more opportunities to register, and then also us be able to reach out to additional athletes who are interested and get them engaged as well. April 15th is when you can expect that initial coach update. So as I mentioned before, we're going to start communicating with you guys earlier on those roster updates. So April 15th is we're going to provide you that initial review opportunity of where we stand roster-wise for your teams up until that point. And then we can make any adjustments at that stage. MedFest that I covered earlier is going to be on May 14th. We're going to continue to look at other opportunities again throughout the region, and we'll provide updates as those become available. May 15th will be that secondary coach check-in. We'll have an athlete and family update on May 20th. This is a new element that we're offering. As those of you who participated with us in the winter, you noticed that a lot of families were paired in with teams that they wanted to be paired with another athlete, or the practice didn't work for them, the timing or the location. So we want to give athletes and their families the opportunity earlier to review the roster's placements as well, so that they can provide us with that initial feedback, and we can make those adjustments and move them to the other teams that make more sense to them prior to sharing a finalized roster, so that when the roster window closes and we are able to share that with you, it's a finished product, and then you guys are ready to just hit the ground running with your season. So June 1st is when we are going to be making that final team placement announcement, and then our summer season will kick off June 20th and run through August 15th. Now, we'll shift gears to the next slide. There are two, we're looking to capture some feedback from you guys as coaches, and there's two different registration processes for coaches specifically that we're looking to get your feedback on, and I would love your input on what makes most sense for you in registering your teams. We are exploring two options. One is a 1-month window that is open the month immediately prior to the athlete registration window. So kind of what the timeline that we were just discussing there. So it's open now, it'll close at the end of the month. Then at the beginning of March, we'll open up athlete registration. Is that something that you guys would like to continue? Or the other option is a biannual registration. So in this scenario, we would open up registration far earlier for multiple seasons. So essentially, we would be looking at, in December, we would open up coach registration for both summer and fall teams, give you guys the opportunity to register at that point with the information that you have available at that time. And then in July, we will offer coach registration for winter and spring teams. Understanding that a lot of your practice information is finalized at that point, you're still locking in locations and times, details on dates, all that stuff is still at play. But at this point, we can capture more of the additional support needs that you guys are looking for from us, and give us more time to work to support you in that. And then as we approach the dates closer to registration, we can then fine tune your registration with some of those additional practice details as they become available to you. So we're looking at these two options, and we're gonna share a poll now, and would love for your guys' feedback on which one you think is your preference that you would like to move forward with. So you'll see a poll come online now.
It's not working anymore for me, so someone else might have to launch it.
I can probably do it.
All right.
Got it. Did that work?
I see it.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I just got a question. When we do this, because I've done this a couple of times when you guys rolled it out, the only concern is some of the questions on that registration, which is practice time and practice day and practice location, those three questions. Sometimes coaches don't have that information at the time of registration because it takes time to get a location and a date and a time locked down in place. And I'm in the Southeast region. Nice to meet you, by the way. And I know you're taking over for the Southeast region until someone gets hired.
Temporarily, yeah.
So right now, this is just off base here with what happened with the school district. Pueblo does not have any other resources to do. So right now, if this comes available for our practice time, if you're talking, I already did the spring tentative form for our track and field, but right now I don't have a location because for one, we can't use the school district until something gets resolved. Other than that, then our team won't have a track and field team. And most Pueblo teams down
totally
here won't have
understand.
that.
And happy to answer that question. So just to touch on it, we understand that a lot of that information around practice locations, dates, times is not really available until even closer to the season. So, and that's okay. We can continue to adjust that on our end, on the back end. So that's just a communication piece that you would need to share with your regional manager. So as you know it and becomes available, you can share that with your RM. We'll make those adjustments. What we're trying to capture is as much information as possible earlier. And if it's not ready, we can always make those adjustments at a later date.
Okay.
Yeah, awesome. All right. Are we all set on the poll? Do we know?
We are really close. I believe we have 50 of the 60 participating. So if you have not yet answered the poll, we can do like maybe 20 more seconds and then I'll go ahead and end it.
Probably our
That's great.
staff. Okay, good. Michelle, I'm glad you have it. It's like, I don't know where the result went.
Awesome. Great. Michelle, would you give us a quick announcement of which one's the more popular of the two?
Yeah, this is pretty cool. I wish I had some popcorn. So we actually are 51% 1 month prior and 49% twice a year. So it's pretty neck and neck at this point.
That's exactly what I was looking for. Something that was really indecisive and not super clear. Great. Well, thank you for your feedback, coaches. We really appreciate it. We will continue to evaluate it. And, we will share an update here in a short order where we can let you know which of the two directions we'll be moving in. But we really do appreciate your feedback. Thank you. All right, so communication. We're going to kick it off to Michelle, who's going to share a little bit more about what our communication strategy is looking like.
All right, so we are really trying to help with our customer service. We're really wanting to communicate better with our coaches, with our athletes, with our partners. And I think through this, even the initial start of this, we really got to call a lot of people and place them on correct teams based on just doing this. So that we've seen a lot of success so far, and there's only room to grow at this point. So, when we get everyone's registration in, we are going to communicate with our athletes and our partners. There's a couple of different types of communications that goes out based on what the athlete or partner is. So if they're brand new, the regional managers or the athlete director, the young athlete director will reach out to them, introducing themselves and kind of giving them a breakdown, which we'll go over in a minute. We're also looking into creating a welcome packet so that the athletes will receive something in the mail that's very personal, very welcoming, along with a lot of good details that they're going to need to know about the organization. So that's pretty cool. For returning athletes and partners, they're also going to get an email once they register for that season. And they are going to get a little bit more of a general email outlining the next steps for that season. So these might be, seasoned athletes, they've seen this before, but could, they want to know a little bit more about that season and just to keep them, structured out. And then we also have those who are expiring. So we will send them emails, letting them know that they are expiring. They're going to expire maybe that season. So that, when it's 2 weeks until the tournament, we're not scrambling to try to get them prepared for everything so that they can compete. So hopefully this will help with that. We can go ahead and go to the next slide. So the next slide is going to kind of go over what these new athletes are going to get from their regional manager or from the young athletes director. We introduce ourselves, we say welcome. We see that you signed up for, let's just say, swimming and track and field for the spring 2022 season. And then it shows 5 different steps that we will cover within that email. So the first being, you're very new at this. This is what we need in order for you to properly be an athlete or a partner with Special Olympics Colorado. So we'll give them that link to register for that, for the athlete application, as well as the Unified Partner Class A. If they don't really know how to get that done, we have a couple of different options for them. The first being, if they're really close to a MedFest, we will give them that date so that they can take what they need, they can attend that, and then they get it done right then and there. The second being, if they can't make that MedFest or maybe they're too far from it, we give them a step-by-step process of how to do it online or how to print out that exam form and go to the doctor, and then how to upload that. So next, we then talk a little bit about the timeline, which Adrian kind of went over with you guys. We would give them some sort of that timeline so that they know when specific people are going to be reaching out to them, when they should be placed on a team, and when practice might start. The third part would be how will we communicate with you? So primarily email. Of course, we call if we don't hear anything back. We have newsletters. Each region has one specific to it. So, all those different events that are very unique to that region, we get all of that information out to them. And then, of course, we give them access to all of our online opportunities too, with our regional web pages and just really good links that they would need to know about. We can go to the next slide. All right. And then some frequently asked questions. We talk a little bit about, what they should expect during that season. The fact that it's 8 weeks, and that's a pretty good time commitment. When they should hear from their coach after that initial team placement. That we're going to be asking everyone to wear a mask unless they are actively competing or training outside. So just some good questions that they might have that we can go ahead and answer right away. The fifth being additional athlete opportunities. So we really want to make sure that athletes are aware that, sports is amazing and sports is what we, do, but we also have leadership opportunities that help them, have speeches better and do all these different things with our media and fitness captains where they lead their team in stretching. So we want to make sure that they're aware of these opportunities and that they can sign up for those, or if they're recommended for those, what those are exactly. And I believe that's the end of that slide for me. And I will go ahead and kick it over to Elizabeth after I open it up for a moment about any questions about that communication. Okay,
We're good.
Elizabeth, go on ahead. If you guys have questions, feel free to pop it in the chat.
See if I can multitask with the screen and talking. So I just wanted to go over, with a change in process and everything, we just want to make sure that when regional managers or anybody else from Special Olympics is communicating with coaches and athletes and partners, that we're using the terminology that we mean, because a lot of things kind of mean the same things, but they're different processes, and we just want to make sure that the communication is clear. So we wanted to distinguish between registration, so seasonal registration, that's going to be sport specific. So what we're talking about tonight in this call, it's going to be sport specific, held seasonally, and we're asking athletes and partners to register as well as coaches. This is not going to be replacing that athlete application in Class A process. So like it's listed here, it's required to participate after the registration process. So it's required, the athlete application is going to be required by our athletes, obviously. It's renewed online every 3 years. It includes a physical exam form, medical history, waivers, and release forms. And then for the Class A, that's going to be for all coaches and unified partners. It includes a background check for anybody who's over 18, as well as concussion training and protective behaviors. And then moving on to competition entries. So saying the term entries, this is going to be event specific. So it's the forms that a coach, so you guys are going to be submitting to our the regional managers and to Susan from the competitions team prior to those regional and state competitions. It's where we collect information about the final roster of participants, so athletes, partners, coaches who are going to be at those competitions, and it includes information about levels and divisions and scores, and those are going to be different per sport, like you guys know. And this information is all used to create our competition divisions and schedules, all the fun stuff. So just wanted to distinguish between those different terms of, you register for a season, but then there's the athlete application in the Class A, and then there's entry forms. I've just heard, registering for a competition, and we just want to make sure that the terminology is being used the same way, and we're not getting lost in translation or anything like that. So Adrian or Meg, anything to add there?
No, I'll just expand that. Our long-term goal is to get to a point where when you can utilize the roster that we provide you for registration and use that to serve as your entry form for competition. We're going to get there at some point in time. It's something that we're going to continue to tweak and utilize, but to limit the amount of duplicated entry forms that we're currently capturing from you guys. We're hoping that we can get to a point where we can better serve you guys by giving you the access to utilize your registration and rosters that you receive at the beginning of the season as your entry for the competitions. Just to give you an idea, our current database that we're using for competitions is different from the one that we're utilizing for registration. So they don't communicate with one another, so that creates that barrier where we're looking for that additional information from you prior to competition window.
So this is just kind of a continuation of that last slide with all of the links that are related to each of those terms. And we have just like a one-page document that we can share out that has all of this as well. So I hope you're not furiously writing down hyperlinks or anything right now, but we'll have like a one-page description of what we went over in the last slide, as well as these links. So we're going to walk through, meaning I'm going to stop sharing this screen and switch to a different one. We are going to walk through our if I can get out of it, our what this coach registration form looks like. And this is going to be our summer registration form, just to give you an idea of just what it looks like and what it involves. Obviously, spring coaches on here have done it, but just want to give a preview for those summer coaches that are on the call. So I'm going to reshare. So it's a Microsoft form. So like we said previously, it's not super high tech. It's what we have to work with right now, but it's really going to lay the groundwork for those companies and other platforms that Meg mentioned before, knowing what we really need from those companies to help us build this out and make it more efficient. So I won't read through all this, but it just kind of gives information and directions on how to fill it out. So you're going to respond with which region you are in. There's been some updates to a couple of the counties in our regions. So if you want to double check, you can head to this link that will show you where you're located versus which region you're located in. First name, last name. Are you a head coach of a community team? Are you a head coach with a school? Or are you a program coordinator for multiple teams and multiple sports? This form, we've mentioned this in different emails and explanations of this, but this is really meant for head coaches and those program coordinators. We want to avoid multiple coaches from the same team filling it out for that team, so that we don't think that we have more teams than actually exist, and we avoid those duplications. So just discuss amongst your team. If you identify as we're just co-head coaches for our team, just make sure just have one person fill it out so that we can streamline it. Email address where you want to have all of the communication come through, phone number in case we need to call to follow up on anything. We'll have each of those season sports listed out. So we have bocce, cycling, golf, softball, tennis. This doesn't really reflect it very well, but in some seasons, there are some sports that are only offered for certain age groups. So all ages means that it's offered for the 4 to 7 group. And then you'll see bocce starts at 8+. So other seasons will have different, distinguishments under here. Your team name, and then it just gives a little examples of how to list out your assistant coaches so that we can include them on the roster, check on their Class A status before sending you your roster. But if there aren't any, it's not a required field, so it'll still let you submit even if there's not any assistant coaches to list. You are going to select all of the age groups that apply for your team. So you could be selecting all of them if that applies, or whichever ones apply to your team. You are going to respond to whether you are a new team or a returning team. I would assume everyone on this call, if you're filling out the summer form, you're going to be returning, but this is also going to be for anybody that regional managers have been working with who are starting a brand new team, and we send them to this form to complete it, or we complete it on their behalf. So that's why those options exist.
We'll pause real quick right there and just say that some of you guys will be a long time existing program, but offering a new sport that you haven't offered before. And then that would then count as a new team. So you would register that team as a new team, even though you've been part of Special Olympics for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Are you unified or traditional? Unified is basically just telling us that you have athletes and partners on your team, or maybe you've been traditional in the past, but you want to open it up to unified in this given season. So you'll select one of those. This was another kind of evolution from our winter season registration, was adding that team ability level. We found particularly with like alpine ski and snowboard, we wanted to know more about the team's ability level and what coaches could reasonably accommodate on their team. If they're super advanced, we don't want to throw a beginner skier on the team or a beginner swimmer if you guys are at more of an advanced level, for example. So this doesn't lock you in place for, like Adrian mentioned, eventually we want to use this for entry forms, but this we'll show you in a couple slides, but this will all spit out into an Excel spreadsheet and we can type in new answers. So if you fill it out and you're like, actually, I think we need to we need to update it from a beginner to intermediate. Like I have some athletes that have really improved. I'd like to, accept more intermediate level athletes on my team. So these are just, quick descriptions of what each of those are for reference. But like I said, it does not lock you into that for the season. So we can always update that throughout the season. Practice location, we've touched on this. If you don't know, you'll see that there is not a little asterisk next to it. So if you don't know, you don't have to fill this out and you can still submit the form. But even if it's just a general city that you plan on practicing in, that can be super helpful. If you are reflecting later on in this form of if you're willing to accept more athletes, or if you need more athletes, if you need coaches, if you need unified partners, this will help us funnel those athletes in that similar area to your team. If we at least know, like Tammy, you were mentioning, you guys are in Pueblo, you're having trouble finding an exact location, but if you just put Pueblo, that'll help us at least know a general vicinity of where you guys are practicing and the athletes that might be close enough to you to join your team if you're looking to add some people to your roster. Again, with practice details, days and time, you don't need to know this right when you fill it out. We can always add it on the back end. I can pause here and just make sure there aren't any questions in the box that I'm missing. Adrian, anything?
You can continue.
Okay.
Yep.
So this is the part that really opens it up for how can we support you with your team for this season. So are you in need of any additional coaches? And we even break it down into different types of coaches. So do you need more administrative help? Are you a head coach for the sport that really focuses on the sport, but could really use some support with the administrative? So like paperwork, communicating with the team with any practice details and things like that. Do you just need more sport assistant coach support, helping with facilitating drills and those skill developments, just more people who are providing more support for your athletes at a practice? Are you a local program coordinator who really doesn't coach the sport, but you need that head coach to run the practice and really plan out those practices? Or are you a head coach for a team that might be wanting to expand your team into, a larger local program, and you need that local program coordinator to coordinate all of those teams that kind of come together? Or you're good to go, you don't have any coaching needs? Same thing for athletes and unified partners. We go from, nope, I don't need any more athletes or partners. Yep, I need more athletes. I need more unified partners. I need both. And regardless of how you answer this question, we'll still have you answer this one of, maybe you don't need any athletes or partners, but you're willing to accept more. Like you don't need to round out your roster. Like basketball, you need a certain amount of people to run a 5-person, game on the court. But then maybe you're a coach that you're like, yeah, like I don't need any more, but I can accept a couple more athletes, and you put how many spots on your roster you have. And this could also be related to the different COVID guidelines that we have for practices. So keeping those in mind as you're filling these out. Hopefully, eventually we won't have to think about that. But right now that does need to be taken into account of how many people you can reasonably accommodate at your practice. So like a swim practice, how many people can you reasonably fit in all of the lanes that you have reserved at that pool, for instance? And then the last question that we ask is, maybe you're a team that is only 22 years old and up for your athletes, but you're willing to open that up to those younger age brackets. And maybe that would even change your answer to whether you need more coaches. So you can always scroll back up and be like, well, yeah, if I'm going to accept an 8 to 15 or a 4 to 7 or both, then I'm going to need some more coaches for that. And then you submit it, and then we see it on the back end in our fancy spreadsheet. Any questions here for the form, either from spring coaches or from summer coaches who this is your very first time seeing this?
Tammy here. Number 20, the question, the way that I took that is that you would mentor, meaning you're not going to add to your team, but you would practice with another team to help a coach. That's how I always took that one. Is that not what that means?
I guess it could, because like if you are willing to add, kind of absorb a younger team, but then we would need to add more coaches. That could be just something maybe after you submit it, just like contacting your regional manager and clarifying what you meant by it. We could also update the wording in this. I guess, how would you, I don't know, anyone else want to?
Because
Yeah.
mentor means to me like taking on another, having say like another coach in Pueblo who needs a practice field, and I have a practice field that I can share. I can bring that team over and we can coach each other's team, be a mentor and helping each other. That's how I take that.
Yeah, I think they work similarly. So basically what we're trying to accomplish here is, would you like to add a team in this age group under your umbrella of existing teams? So that's what we're looking to do. I think we can craft the language here a little bit better to make it a little bit clearer, but definitely helpful feedback.
And another,
yeah, go
and
ahead.
another feedback is when you said about the limit numbers, maybe add for this season, if you're doing basketball, you're only allowed this many athletes. That will help us to say, yeah, we can add more athletes, or no, we cannot, because we're already at our max. Instead of us
Yeah.
Definitely.
flipping pages, it'd be easy to put those numbers beside the sport. Like if you're clicking on this sport, you're only allowed this many athletes. If you're
Yep.
doing this sport, that would help us as coaches to fill this out without having to go to the main page and say, okay, how many are they going to allow?
Absolutely. Yeah, we can definitely do that.
that would
That's
help.
really helpful.
Okay.
Now I will just pause real quick and say that we are approaching the end of our allotted time for this call, and there's still quite a bit for us to cover. So those of you who do need to drop off at 7:30, feel free to do so. We are recording this call, so we could share a recap at the end, and you can pick up from where you left off. But we're going to continue to move forward with our presentation. Those of you who are interested and able to continue on, we welcome you to stay on as long as you are able. But we're gonna move forward. But with that, we're gonna move to the athlete and partner registration portion now. But does anybody have any other questions, clarifying comments on the coach registration piece? Excellent. All right, we're gonna move ahead. All right, so here's our athlete partner registration form for the spring season. We haven't finalized what the summer application is going to look like for summer registration. Apologies, is going to look like for our athletes just yet, but this is essentially the concept that we're looking at. So we do an introduction here similar to the one the coaches receive. The one thing we will add is we added this one note here. You'll find, please note some community programs have their additional registration. This is something that we receive feedback from a lot of our parks and recreation partners, specifically, who have their own programmatic registration that is independent from our own. So we wanted to clarify here that additional registration may be required for those type of programs. Now, this is the first touch point that we're going to be offering this, but for any athletes that do register for those programs that have additional registration needed, like our parks and recreation partners, we will provide those links and that additional information to those athletes upon team placement. So it'll be mentioned here, but then they'll receive it once again, that they need to register one more time with their program of choice if they do have an additional registration. And that said, if you as coaches have a secondary registration different from our own, please communicate that with your regional managers so that we are aware we have that, those links handy, and then any additional fees that are incurred through your registration that we can share when we do that team placement. So we're going to move on. So one of the things we are looking to capture here, we're this is new. We want to capture vaccination information. So we've received this information from some of our volunteer coaches who are wanting to know what the vaccination status is of the athletes that are joining their team, because everybody's got a different comfort level when it relates to COVID. So being able to provide that that information to those coaches will definitely help give them a little bit more peace of mind going into the season. But then we are also giving those athletes the opportunity not to answer if they would prefer not to. So it's definitely not something that we're not asking for any vaccination requirements by any stretch of the imagination for participation. We're just looking to see where everybody stands if they're willing to offer it. Same thing, what region you're located in, what your basic first name, last name, date of birth, if they're an athlete or a unified partner. So we're directing both athletes and unified partners to register through here, so we can provide you guys with more unified partners, as I know that that's been a need for a lot of our teams. Primary email address, this is going to be either the athlete or care provider who serves as the primary point of communication for that individual. So listing that here. Same thing, primary phone number for the individual as well. Mailing address where we can send any welcome packets that we mentioned earlier. So we know who to send that to, who to address it to. Now moving on into what sport they're choosing. Now we did touch on it a little bit earlier, but we are asking that they complete this form one time for each individual sport that they are offering. So you'll see that they'll be able to offer and join whichever sport that they would like to, and they can join all. They're not limited to one. Now, the one caveat to that is they still need to choose the sport of choice that they want to participate at state. If they are registered for all 5-6 sports here, they won't be able to participate in all of them at state. They will have to make that selection, but at least they'll be able to train with the different sports that they would want to engage in. If they're here, we're asking if they're joining a school team, so one of our Unified Champion School programs, or a community team, so basically a non-school affiliated program. Moving on to the next question is, which of these best describes you as an individual? Are you new? Is this the first time you're ever involved in Special Olympics? This is going to give us an idea of how to better serve this athlete. What kind of additional communication do we need to get them? How do we direct them to the athlete application so that we ensure that they have that all completed before being paired with your team, so that you guys aren't having to chase down athletes once the season starts up to get them their paperwork updated prior to competitions. I'm not new, but this is my first time participating in this sport. So for athletes who are returning and have been doing Special Olympics for a long time, but are wanting to try a sport that they haven't done before, this is their option. I am returning and would like to participate on the same team I was previously on. So if you've been part of the Southsiders for your entire life and would want to continue being part of the Southsiders, this is the question that you would select. And then I'm returning, but would like to try a different team. So some athletes like to, maybe they relocated, maybe they are, wanting to try a different team that a new friend moved to. So this is where they would select to be able to register for the sport that they've already done before, but then join a new team if they are seeking that opportunity. Question 13. I'm returning to the following teams. So this is something that we didn't get to offer in the spring, but now are looking to provide athletes that opportunity to pick the team that they are familiar with. So if you select this drop-down menu, you'll see that we basically broke it up by the sport, the team name, in parentheses, it's the coach who registered that team, and then what region it's in. So we're trying to provide as many qualifiers as possible for athletes to be able to remember which one of these teams is theirs. What we saw a lot in the winter was athletes would register and like, I would like to be part of Coach Bob's team. And we're like, okay, that we don't know which Coach Bob that is. So that made it a little bit difficult on our end to make sure that they were paired up with the right program. We'd have to investigate a little bit further, but here we're trying to streamline that as much as possible, so it makes it easy for athletes to pick the team that they would like to come back to. Participant ability level. Now we understand that a lot of your teams this is very unique to team sports specifically. So basketball, or softball. It's difficult to form a full team when you have a first-time beginner athlete and then a long-time advanced, really great softball player who's been doing it for the longest time and really comfortable with the sport. So to be able to provide your teams with a little bit more balance in the athletes who are on your team, we are trying to capture this information on the front end to, as best as possible, be able to match your athletes by similar ability level. Now, we understand that this is very subjective, and athletes will rate themselves how they perceive themselves. So it may be, it may not be super accurate, but at least this is going to get us in the direction we want to go to provide you with more of that team balance and ability level. Participant age range, self-explanatory. What group do they fall in? If you would like to be matched on another team with another athlete, unified partner, or a specific coach, great feedback we got from a lot of families in the winter season. That was like, I want to be paired with my buddy Jimmy, and we would match them on different teams because we weren't asking that question, and then we would have to revisit and make those adjustments on the back end and make sure that they were connected and participating on the same team. So this is capturing that information from the get-go so that we know that I want to be with Jimmy. We're pairing both of those individuals together on the same team so that they could practice together. How many miles are you willing to travel to practice? This is helpful for some of the sports that are a little bit less prevalent. So figure skating, for example, in the winter season, there's 3 teams in the state. So if you are in Summit County and would like to participate in figure skating, you're probably going to have to travel quite a bit into like Denver to get that opportunity. So being able to see that they're willing to make that commute will allow us that opportunity to be able to pair them with teams that may be outside of their immediate vicinity. And then this is just an acknowledgement that we're only able to provide these opportunities to athletes if we have volunteer coaches who are able to lead these teams. So just notifying them on the front end, if for whatever reason we aren't able to put a team together because we haven't found a volunteer coach who's willing to lead that team, we are going to do the best in our ability to be able to find them an additional opportunity elsewhere with another program, or direct them to a different sport that might be able to better get them that opportunity that they're seeking for the season. So this is just what that clarifying question dictates here. But with that, that is essentially the athlete partner application. And welcome any feedback and questions that you may have on this that we can take to better structure this as questionnaire to support our athletes.
Tammy, again, I know I have a lot here, but
Keep them coming, Tammy.
it seems like there's a conflict, because if they're choosing teams and when they do their athlete application, they have to put a team in a coach's name on that. So if they're filling this out, but their main application already has one coach's name and contact information plus the team name, it's like there's a conflict there.
Yeah, I'll say that those two are independent processes from one another. So the information that we're capturing here is to get them paired up with the team that they're going to be training for that season. So that way we know who to connect them with. For the athlete application, that's a benefit for the coaches so that they're aware of that the application has been submitted and that that athlete is now cleared to participate for the season. That said, regional managers receive copies of every single one of those athlete applications that are completed. So even if the coach name is different from the coach who's leading that program, the regional manager can make that assessment and then pass along that information to the coach who really is the one that should be receiving that information. So I did just want to clarify 2 independent processes there. Deb, I see you have a question.
Yes, this is I may be a little bit sort of unique, is I have a team of fairly aging athletes that have been together for 30 years plus, and I fill out all the information. None of them really are capable of doing that, and my concern is there a way to put something on the form for volunteer coaches such as myself that have to do it? None of the athletes that I have are going to fill out these forms. I will have to do all of them. And even caregivers or parents or sisters, again, we're talking, 40, 50, 60, 70-year-old athletes.
Sure.
And I'm doing it all. So my concern is there a way to make it a little easier? These are not athletes that are going to go to any other coach. We're not going to add a lot routinely to our team. Our team is basically like this little sort of aging in place group. But is there a way to do that without making it too difficult? Like if your athletes, I don't know, if they fill out this section or skip to this section, just so I don't have to do that every single time.
Yeah, no, that's a great it's great feedback, and I think this is one of those things that I think is going to be better addressed as we are able to implement some more technology into the system. So we can do a more like batch type of registration for multiple athletes at once. That said, temporarily, we can look at options where, if you are able to submit first name, last name, date of birth, and then maybe some general contact information, whether it be an email or a phone number, if we collect that information, that's really the most important information that we're trying to capture from your athletes. So really, really great feedback, and something that we'll take back to the team and explore how we can make that a little bit more accessible for you and your athletes.
Great, appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anybody else? Questions? Again, this is still a very fluid process, and we're making the best decisions based off of what we anticipate your needs being. But nobody knows your athletes better than you all, and the support that they need through a process like this. So we're very happy to take the feedback that you guys are willing to offer and make the adjustments necessary to better support you guys as coaches, and then also our athletes as well. Great. I got one privately in the chat. Greg, we will share the link for the coach registration form, but it will be live on our season registration page, and you'll see it at the top of the page as well, clearly defining that it is coach registration. But your regional managers, so me, I will share it with you, Greg, and the other regional managers will share it with you as coaches.
And the other feedback on the online application, the athlete application, Adrian, I can't remember if you have a MedFest slide, but we completely agree. We have the athlete help desk to help with the athlete application. So you can make phone calls into that number and the team there can walk you through. And then that was the reason why we've really built up the number of MedFest events that we have all around the state. And so we absolutely know filling out that online application and getting the medical needed is cumbersome. And so that's why we created, or the team put together MedFest, so you can go right to that event and get the sports physical that's needed and get any help that is needed to fill out that application then and there. So you'll see the schedule, and we're really trying to make those throughout the year. And other thing to note is even if you, in the communication that Michelle went through, where they said you'll get an email saying if your application is about to expire, feel free to not let it expire. Those MedFests are open to anyone. And so if anyone wants to renew their application or medical a year in advance, that's perfectly fine. Those MedFests are there and anyone is welcome to come.
Okay. Now we'll move. I believe this is our last topic that we're going to cover, but basically this is the end product. Everything that we've been covering over the last hour and 15 minutes is with the goal in mind of building out this finished product for you guys as coaches. So when we close registration, we will be sharing this. This is a sample roster form. This is what you could expect to receive prior to the season. So it's what you'll notice is we have several columns just covering the gamut of all the questions that we received from the athlete registration. But one of the things that I think will help you all out is providing you with the medical and Class A status far further in advance than we have at any point before, so that you can start having that communication with your athletes at the beginning of the season. So this will include all the new athletes, all the returning athletes. Everybody will be covered here. Ideally, with the communication, the earlier we're able to share with our athletes as they register, will help us streamline this process so that all of our athletes will ideally have their athlete applications on file and current going into the beginning of a practice season. That's our end goal, and one that I think we can really accomplish by with all the measures that we're taking to communicate earlier. Vaccination status, we'll receive that as well and share kind of what their current status is as individuals. You'll also notice that there's multiple color distinctions here. So blue will designate you as coach, the individual who completed the form, the lead contact for the team. Any assistant coaches will be listed here in green. So those will be two different types of coaches. They'll be the ones that you've submitted through your coach registration. And then if you've requested any additional coach support and we've made any matches over the course of the registration window, we will also list those individuals' contact information here as well. So we will make those introductions to coaches, new assistant coaches, as those matches are made. So it won't come on the day of registration. You'll be hearing and meeting with them at a much earlier point, but their information will be listed here as a refresher so that you know, oh yeah, I remember that Eric got paired with my team. Let me include him on team communication. The region, first name, last name, date of birth will be listed here as well, what their role is, if they're a head coach, an athlete, a unified partner, their email address, their phone number, what sport they registered for. Are you a community team? Are you a school team? Returning, so this part here, new to sport or returning, this is basically going to be your distinction if this individual is new to your team altogether. If they are a returning athlete, somebody who's been part of your team previously, if they're new to the sport, and so by way of that, also new to your team, that'll also be listed here as well. You'll see those, they will be highlighted in red, so give you another fact that it'll draw your eyes to, so you know who those individuals are. Your team name, the divisioning level of the individual that they registered. So you'll see that will vary based off of what they requested. The age group for your team. Are you a traditional unified team? Practice location, dates and times, etc. So this is essentially the full roster that you will receive, and hopefully it's a useful tool that will help support you as you prepare for your season. But once we've made that team match and communicated that with you as coaches, you guys have verified the roster, told us that it's good to go, and once we've crossed that step, then we will introduce you as coaches to all these families on your team. So we'll make that introduction email. Families, please meet Coach X. They're going to be coaching this team Y at these dates and times. Looking forward for you to having a meaningful season. Then at that point, we've handed off the baton to you guys as coaches, and you can carry on with your communication as you have for your entire time in coaching. So then you'll be setting up your initial practices and getting started with them going into the season. So this is the handoff point where we've got them through registration, and now they're ready for you to join your team and get started with practices. So with that, is there anything that we may be overlooking from rosters that you think would be a helpful addition to include upon receiving your initial rosters? Excellent. We covered it all. We thought of it, all of it. It's great. Well, with that concludes our presentation, but we'll definitely leave it open for any additional questions that you may have. I know I saw some questions come through the chat. Or was there anything else that we should cover from those of you that are monitoring the chat? Okay.
Will you be letting athletes know when transferring them to municipal teams that there's typically a registration fee?
Yep. Yeah, definitely. We will include that in that team placement communication. So when we in the timeline, when we do our first touch point with athletes and families, informing them of the team that we are looking to make the match with, we will let them know that those teams have an additional registration and that there's a fee included with the registration. So we can hopefully capture that on the front end, obviously knowing that some families don't have the means or are not comfortable with that, we can then find a secondary program opportunity for them as well.
What happens if they're not participating on a community team or a school team that was on the athlete application?
So it's one or the other. With how we're structured currently, it's if you are not part of a unified champion school, the only opportunity or team classification that we have is community team. So that's any agency-based team or any general volunteer-led team, or we classify those as community teams. But I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that's something that we can clarify a little bit further for our athletes.
Okay.
Great. Any other questions? Well, terrific. With that said, we will wrap up the call now. Anybody who would like to remain on the line and ask questions, I will be happy to stay on for another 5 or so minutes. So thank you all for joining, and thank you all for your support and your very generous feedback through this. We're really excited to provide this new platform for you guys and better support you as coaches as we continue to advance this effort. So thank you all for the feedback, the continued support, and your general patience as we are continue to fine tune the kinks as we work through this process. So thank you all. We greatly appreciate you all, and I'm sure we'll be seeing many of you here in short order as we prepare for winter regional competitions. Thanks, everybody.
Is there a way that I can chat with you for a minute, Adrian?
Here for 5. You got me for 5, Tammy.
Okay. Well, first of all, I know that you took over for Tasha, which I know that puts more on your plate type of deal. But as far as Southeast region goes for here in Pueblo, what is the update on that insurance issue? Because like I said, down here in Pueblo, we don't have the resources for gyms and
Sure.
fields and stuff. And with upcoming track and field, and we utilize D60 for our schools, and if we don't have that, then how am I going to make my track and field team without that?
Totally. I empathize with you on that, and that's something that we're, unfortunately, I don't have an update for you. There's just the language on the contract is it's not something that the county or the school district is able to move on, that we really require in order for us to be able to sign off on a contract. So I'm continuing to have those conversations with the school district to see if it's something that our 2 insurance companies can come to an agreement on. But unfortunately, as it stands right now, that's not a contract that we're going to be able to move forward on. So we're happy to get creative on other practice opportunities and locations. So
yeah, the only one is CSU, and I talked to the director over there personally, and with the summer, with the track and field, they have their athletes, their college students using this stuff. And so for practicing for us, it will limit our time frame of when my athletes can practice, which is weekdays after 4 is what's best for our athletes. And usually at that time frame, they're utilizing their facilities at that time. And so I just kind of need to know if I need to tell my track and field team that, hey, we're not having track and field. I'd rather let them know now.
Ideally, we would find another solution than that. I'm not familiar with Pueblo myself, but I'm happy to speak with that facility and then do some additional investigations, see if there's any other locations, maybe even outside the Pueblo area, or see what other times might be available. But we're going to do the best we can to support you this season.
Could you stay in touch with me on that? Because it's not just me as a coach. I have other coaches down here that are, it's like, what do we do? Because we can't, the school district is our facilities type of deal. And that's the whole thing. It's the middle schools, high schools. And since we can't use them all, it's like, and traveling outside of Pueblo, most of our athletes are older athletes, and they utilize the bus system. And if they can't get outside of Pueblo, doesn't make any sense. So just wanted you to be aware of the situation that we're facing as coaches. But if you can, I love CSU Pueblo. I love their track. I love their fields. If you can work on her and get some time slots in advance, I'd be happy to go sign immediately for track and field and football, and I'll knock that stuff down for the rest of the year. I'm okay with that. So just gotta let me know.
We'll definitely be in touch on it. I'm gonna regroup with the team here. Just I know Michelle's had some touch points with Pueblo in the past, so she might be able to give me some leads. And then Meg and I will chat offline about the contract language and see what kind of flexibility we might have there. But we'll explore all the options, Tammy, and definitely do what we can to make sure that you guys are supported this season.
Okay, and also, just so you're aware, I'm coming out from underneath Pueblo Crush and I'll be
Yep.
forming my new
Yep.
team, Soaring Eagles in with the track and field, starting
I
with
saw.
track and field. Okay.
Great. Well, yeah, no, excited for that. Thank you. For
All
that.
right. Nope, nope, not a problem. Thank you. And I appreciate it. I know I had a lot tonight, but just want to, want to get
I
all
love
my
it. It was
ducks in a
great.
row.
It was great.
I'm a planner and I got to have all my ducks in a row. So.
You and me both. I love it.
All right. Well, it's nice meeting you and looking forward to working with you. And again, you got my email, my phone number and address. If you need anything from me, just let me know.
Thank you, Tammy.
All right. You guys have a blessed one.
You too. I see a couple are still on the call. Anybody else have any questions that we can help answer?
Hi, it's Angie, and
Hi, Angie.
you
Yep.
sent me an email about talking tomorrow at 11. Are you still
Sure.
available for that?
It's a great question. I want to say I am. I will tell you momentarily. Yes, I am. So let's do 11 o'clock tomorrow. What's a good number for you?
Yeah.
I can communicate with you by email and get that if you're more comfortable.
Yeah, that's fine.
Sounds good. Okay, I will give you a call tomorrow then.
Okay, sounds great.
Thank you, Angie.
Yeah, thank you.
Anybody else? Diane, Greg, I see you guys are still on. And
There we go. Okay, I do have a question. And so my team's been practicing since September. I still have to make them